Good evening, councillors and officers, members of the gallery who are with us this evening, and those people who might be watching us from home. Welcome to the May meeting of Corangamite Shire Council. I'd like to begin with the prayer. We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us who serve as leaders to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interests of the people, culture and the environment of the Corangamite Shire. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land around Corangamite Shire, the Eastern Maar and Wadawurrung people. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal elders and peoples, past, present and emerging. I'll just introduce the councillors and staff who are around the table this evening. To my left is Deputy Mayor Geraldine Canady, Councillor Joe Beard, Councillor Jamie Vogels. To my right is Councillor Kate Macon, Councillor Laurie Hickey and Councillor Nick Cole. We have with us Mr Michael Tudball, who is the acting CEO, and tonight is Michael's last meeting with us as he finishes with Corangamite on Friday, so we can talk a little bit later about that. Round to my right is Mr David Harrington, who's the Director of Corporate and Community Services. We have Ms Brooke Love, Director of Works and Services, Mrs Justine Linley, Director of Sustainable Development, and Mr Aaron Moyne, Manager of Planning and Building. We have no apologies this evening, Mr CEO. I believe there are a couple of conflicts of interest that have been declared.
Yes, we do. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out which items they're for. So we have Councillor Cole for the item at Port Campbell. Mm-hmm. That's correct, yeah. 8.1 planning permit application with an interest. And we have Councillor Conady, which is at Breaton, so I don't have to talk about that.
No, you don't.
And Councillor Vogels with a conflict on item 8.2, planning permit application in Eckland South.
Thank you, Mr Tudball. Councillors, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of April have been circulated. Would someone like to move those minutes, please? Councillor Cole, thank you, and Councillor Macon. Councillor Cole, did you want to speak to the minutes at all? Did you have anything needed amending?
No.
No, nothing, Councillor Macon. Put it to a vote, all in favour? It's carried. Okay. Mr Tudball, we have some deputations and presentations this evening.
We do, Madam Mayor, and through you, we have a number that have submitted. Firstly, on agenda item 8.1, Marion and Ed Manifold, and I believe Marion is here.
Yes.
And maybe Ed. Yep. Miss Laura Fazzolari, written deputation, so I presume Laura is not here. And then for item 8.2, Mr Neil Martin. No? And Mr Daryl Bartlett. Yep. Okay, so Marion and then Daryl.
Terrific. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Marion.
I was told to print 12 of these.
Oh, okay. Perhaps.
So here's
Yeah, Nick's got a conflict in this item. Michael,
Yes, so this is,
Nick, Nick, you'll have to leave.
Nick,
Oh,
you'll
right.
need to depart for this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to leave this passing around.
Oh, that's right. We'll just
Jump.
There you go.
Spare.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, correct. Yes.
Thanks, Marion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. We hope you will take due consideration of our concerns, as these concerns are valid in planning decisions. The main concerns are lack of view sharing, overlooking, zero setbacks from a residential zone, building over easements, and more to be detailed following. The planning report conditions do not solve any of these concerns, and in some cases do not even consider or assess the problems. We hope council will support local people who have valid and legal reasons than support a development with so many problems and which VCAT will not approve as it is. One councillor said to me they could see there were problems, but they will take council to VCAT if we refuse it. But if council passes the permit, we expect the residents will have to take council to VCAT, and we don't believe we should have to do that as their problems are clear. VCAT will pull up these issues. There is no view sharing. The planning report refers to an out-of-date 2002 decision. Since that time, VCAT has taken a different approach to view sharing, especially for much sought-after sea views. VCAT decisions show there must be some sea view. It is the primary view. We sent some quotes from 4 different VCAT decisions which supports this. Number 2, overlooking private open space. If you look at the attachment that I gave you, or we gave you, there is a legal and measurable requirement for overlooking. The planning report is incorrect in saying there is no overlooking. The access via the stairs over the Wannon Water manhole to the back units cannot meet this legal requirement. The steps will be level with Mackenzie's fence, zero setback. Children playing in 7 Hennessy Street private open space will be viewed by motel visitors coming and going. Think of your own homes. Would you want your children in your private backyard overlooked by strangers? VCAT will not allow this to occur. It is a clear legal requirement for council to uphold. Also, there are no vegetated setbacks between this commercial development and the residential homes. VCAT will insist on some vegetated setbacks to ameliorate impacts. Many VCAT decisions show this. VCAT will likely pull up other issues such as unnecessary heights of roof pitches and heights do not align with existing motels. Failure to meet coastal policy siting guidelines to sit buildings into the landscape. Failure to consider the function centre is to be built over an easement. That hasn't even been considered by the planning report. Planning must be fair and orderly and information must be correct and accurate, but parts of this application are not. Amongst other things, the back unit overhang varies on different elevations. The setback of our home is incorrect. There are no contours on our land and the surveyor was allowed to access both our land and our home. The planners said they know what is missing and misleading information there is, but for transparency and accountability and for the public, the plans must be accurate. The inconsistencies in the plans and missing information will be pulled up by VCAT. E is landfill and remnant septic tanks have not been considered as per Schedule 54. While the site is not in a bushfire management overlay, the south back unit is only 20 metres from dense Crown land and requires a BEL assessment. The prefab units are not a quality design as required under the planning scheme, high quality urban design. Bedrooms open plan, bathrooms have no windows or light. Habitable spaces must legally have windows. With only a front window to the west, the units also fail to implement sustainable development. There will be no airflow and the units will be dependent on air conditioning. There is no landscape plan as is necessary under the Schedule 34 because there is no free space to landscape. It is all car parks and driveways. Also, it cannot be considered quality urban design when the rubbish disposal area is immediately next to the motel's only outdoor small recreational space. VCAT won't pass it as it is. we respectfully ask Council to refuse a permit or issue a permit in part with amendments to allow the applicant to reconsider parts of this development, especially access and changes to the back units to allow some view sharing, setbacks, and to stop overlooking. It's a small tourism offering that doesn't contribute that much to Port Campbell's tourism product, but it has major impacts on long-term residents. We hope you will think carefully about what you would be passing if you pass this application, because it will fall over at VCAT for the reasons we've noted, or at least some of them. Thank you for the 5 minutes to present our concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Manifold.
And we have Darryl Bart for agenda item
Do you want me to get?
8.2.
Oh, we
Do you
need,
want me to get?
yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
And Jay, I'm
And-
sorry, I'm going to ask Councillor Vogels to leave.
We'll just swap councillors, if that's okay.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. When you're ready.
Right.
Yes, when you're ready.
My name is Glenn Bartlett, and we are the neighbouring property of the proposed metal recycling operation. We lodged a formal objection to the planning application, and now after an on-site meeting and a written proposal from the applicant, we still don't believe our concerns have been addressed. Our first concern is around the impact of noise and dust. The distance from the proposed operation to our family dwelling is less than 500 metres. The application and response do not give enough detail on how noise and dust will be minimised. The respondent questioned the noise and dust generated by the current quarry in operation, but that's not the issue at hand and is irrelevant. The quarry operation within all shires and department requirements. What is in question is the increased impact from the recycling operation. Our quarry produces volcanic tuff. There is no proven silicon in the local volcanic tuff quarries. To prove this, the quarry would need to be tested. However, no explanation or guarantee has been proven around silica or asbestos particles that will be coming from the materials to be recycled. This is a huge concern for us. All there is produced in recycling concrete, rock, cement and sand are proven to have silicon in them. Our second concern is the lack of detail given on the scale of the operation, how often it will operate during the year, and the expected projection. This seems to be deliberately vague. 4 times a year doesn't give any context on what and how long is this days, months and weeks. There are no details around the proposed dam, where the water will come from, where the overflow will be and how the dam will be lined. This is another big area of concern. We aren't experts in planning and planning policy, but we are so concerned about this proposal that we engaged experts to prepare our objection. They believe the proposal doesn't fit with planning policy on a number of fronts, but I'll let the council decide if this is the case. In summary, this is something we would normally not do, but we are worried that if this application is allowed to go ahead, it will have negative impact on us and the area for a long time to come. The reason why government has recently banned imported stone bench tops because of the silicate. We find it hard to believe the council will set a precinct like this in the Corangamite to crush zinc-based products, knowing that there is such a risk. If the application is to go ahead, we strongly request that all operations and requirements to meet all EPA requirements. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Bartlett. Councillors, before we start our meeting proper, we have Brett Clark is going to be joining us. He's going to be conducting a smoking ceremony and welcome to country, as it's National Reconciliation Week starting on Saturday, and obviously we're meeting this week, so on the spirit of reconciliation, we'll conduct the ceremony this evening. We'd better get Councillor Vocals back. Thank you.
Michael, sorry, do you mind if we shut that door too? Please?
As soon as Brett comes in, yeah.
So, councillors, can I ask someone to move that we suspend standing orders, please? Councillor Hickey, second to Councillor Beard. All in favour? Carried. So we're going to go out to the back garden to conduct this ceremony, and I believe the live stream is going to continue. So, councillors, officers, members of the gallery, if you'd like to join us, we're going to go out the stall.
Dual cameras, stereo.
You're going to print it out in 3D.
We've got these cooking on another garden.
Yeah. No, he's, Brett was just popping to get some foliage. Yeah, fresh gum leaves. No, not No, not that.
It doesn't burn or build really.
Shout out to my dad. Hi, Trevor. Is he saying Trevor?
Hello, Trevor.
Aw.
We've got them all. We're just going to get some young ladies, Madam Mayor.
Have some lunch.
Well, that's the story I heard. Yeah, I don't know whether it's true or not. Yeah. Yes.
Hey, nothing bar everyone. Okay, I'd like to say nothing bar na tukling yung jagat warong alamin. Kuwai warong alamin. Nuchung yana, nuchung waka. Tukata watuk, yintapuna. What I said then, I'd like to pay my respects to the ancestors of yesterday. And not only my ancestors, but everyone's ancestors here. I also mentioned the Jago Wurrung people, who my family are descendants of. The old character I have on my shirt here is that also said Nuchung Yana, Nuchung Raka, to walk and talk with respect, and Tukata Watuk, Yintapuna, is a brand new day. So the old man on the t-shirt, they had this famous saying back in the day, when our elders were passing away. They had this famous weird saying that, you know, that was the last person of his tribe. But not true. So a lot of our ancestors lived through this region, and you know we were pushed onto the missions. Obviously in the early days. Yeah, so you know, I grew up with my grandfather at the friendly and settlement. I moved out to his place in my early teens and had a special upbringing with him. So he taught me, you know, a lot of the beautiful, magical, real-life stories of this area. And also taught me the hardship stories of what it was like growing up as an Indigenous person. Yeah, so when he passed away in 2000, I continued his teachings. Now I have my children here today. They're my young up-and-coming apprentices, learning the true history of the original custodians of this area. You know, we have some of the oldest dreaming stories in the world, and you know, they're very magical if you can take that time to learn, local stories. Like the sacred volcano across from us. That's got a very special dreamy story. The two volcanoes there, the other one with the long pointed bit, what's that one called again? Mount Ura and Corangamite. So that is about a ceremonial gathering, and the other one is moving away. So they're going to do women's business, they're going to do men's business. So this is, a very important area with the clay lakes and stuff. This was a highly populated area back in the day. 60,000 people lived in this region. Obviously, when colonisation arrived, the old people were hit really hard. When they arrived, they brought their sicknesses. A lot of exotic sicknesses were being introduced to the indigenous people. We would have had them sicknesses before colonisation arrived, and it did kill a lot of people. Yeah, so, and even in this modern age, we're living in the crazy days of COVID, and a lot of people have been hard hit. So, when I do a lot of my teachings, I encourage the younger generation, because I do a lot of school talk, that, it's highly important to learn the history of our ancestors. And I always like to remind the younger people to, if we trace back our family history to wherever we might come from in this world, once upon a time, where we were Indigenous nations, and we did live in harmony with Mother Earth. Yeah, so today I brought my children. We normally do a 4-directional thing to acknowledge the ancient tribes in the 4 directions of this area, but also when we're doing it, we're acknowledging the new tribes and the new families that have settled here in our ancient homelands. Yeah, so and in the lemon-scented gum-smelling grave. Yeah. Thank you to Corangamite Shire for having us over for this event tonight, for the meeting. And I hope your meeting goes well. Hopefully, learning from past experiences, learning the true history of the Indigenous people and moving forward together and building, great partnerships and great pathways for Indigenous people to be able to, come back and reconnect the country. And yes, Joel, thank you.
Fred, on behalf of the council, to you and to your children, it's just wonderful to see that the stories are continuing on through the next generation, and that was very special. We really appreciate that coming over this evening. Something that we've never done as part of our council meeting before, but I think it's something that we'll continue to do in the future. So thank you, and thank you guys for taking part. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We want to move back in and we'll resume. Thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
Punch it or push the button. Oh, now I'm distracted.
I'm just getting my hair done.
Oh, look at off to the dry cleaners first.
Thank you, councillors. I hope you got as much out of that as I did. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I hope those watching at home were also pleased to play a small role in that ceremony. Councillors, we need to move out of resume standing orders. Can someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Beard, and seconded by Councillor Macon. All in favour? Carried. Now, Mr CEO, Mr Martin, who has a deputation booked in for item 8.2, is now joining us, so I'll ask Councillor Vogels to leave the chamber. Ask Mr Martin if he'd like to come to the lectern, please.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, is that the correct terminology? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Neil Martin. I'm representing the applicant for the recycling plant. I noticed in the invitation to attend there were the opportunity to hand out some brief paperwork for you, so I've done that.
All right. Mr Moyne, if you'd like to.
Thanks, Sarah. What I've provided there is actually a précis of all of the applications, so
if you'd like to
saving a bit of paper.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I went through your details of the meeting, all of the details that are attached to that are on your notes anyway. So.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Is that better?
I don't know if it's on.
Is it? I'm not sure if the microphone's on. Daniel, are you getting a good read?
I'm sorry?
Okay. Yeah. No, we can hear you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mr Martin. That's fine. Just continue.
So the application is for a small recycling plant in a quarry in South Eckland that is operated by Lily's Lane Quarries, which are the same company that is applying for the recycling plant. The plant is proposed to be operating on the floor of the quarry on an area of approximately about 1 hectare in size. It may be a little more or a little less, but there's only about 2 hectares of floor space available in any case, so it won't be very large. It is a commercial operation. It is for recycled commercial industrial waste, concrete, brick and road base and the like. There's no putrescence or asbestos or any of those sorts of materials will be used. It'll be closed to the public. It's only open during the week, Monday to Friday, to be operated commercially. Material will be stockpiled on site until there's enough material available to bring in a crusher to crush the material, separate it, sort it, and then away it goes to whoever the client may be. So that's basically the operation itself. There's no proposal to do any earthworks apart from stormwater storage on site. So not digging into the ground or any of those sorts of things, except for the small dam. The proposal doesn't have any fuel or lubricant stored on site. They'll be brought in on a needs basis in a certified container in the back of a suitable vehicle. There'll be no machinery on site on a permanent basis, only when the plant is operating. It's difficult to estimate how much material will be available, but it's likely to be 4 to 6 times a year, maybe more, maybe less, that a crushing operation will occur, and that will occur probably for 2 or 3 days at a time. We've allowed for a maximum of 5 trucks per day, but it's likely that some weeks there'll be no vehicles at all, because it's dependent on the availability of material. There's a small stockpile of material on site now, which is probably about 150 tonnes. And that's likely to be what will sit there, maybe 200, maybe 300 tonnes, until that's commercially worthwhile to shift and process. There's no contamination issues that we can have to contend with as far as we're aware. The EPA has provided advice as to the location, the material and distance from residences, and their advice is that it's a Category 3 operation, which basically means more than 300 metres from the closest residence and less than 50,000 tonnes per year in an isolated location. So they're quite comfortable with the operation. The noise levels will be probably consistent with a normal quarry operation when it is in operation, but not on such a permanent basis. So it could be probably considered to be similar to normal farming activities in a rural area. So not a lot of noise, but all of the equipment and all the machinery in operation has to comply with whatever the standard is in terms of mufflers and baffles and things of that nature. The planning processes that we've been through looked at the overlays, where there is an environmentally sensitive overlay and a farming and agricultural overlay that is in the bushfire zone, and there is also a overlay for strategic view. What is it? I'm losing my plot a little here, if you can excuse me. Anyway, the 3 overlays that are basically we're sitting in is we don't have any environmental impact. We're reducing the actual activity area from about 4 to 5 hectares of quarry down to about 1 hectare of operation of the plant. The rest of the area is being rehabilitated to meet the requirements of earth resources. So rehabilitation in this instance means that the banks of the quarry have to be battered, they have to be covered in soil, and they have to be revegetated. In this instance, it'll be revegetated for grazing, because that's the activity that's been occurring in the area. So we're reducing the floor area down to 1 hectare from about 4 to 5 hectares. The sediments will be contained within a stormwater dam on site, which is designed normally for these situations for a 1 in 10 year flood event. That's about the standard for it, but that can be adjusted according to whatever is considered reasonable. A site plan will be designed in some detail to show the actual scale of the operation and where the materials will be stored. At the moment, it's just pretty much this is what it's going to look like rather than this is what it will look like. So that's basically what it's all about.
Great. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillors, now resume the agenda. Item 7. Oh, sorry, Councillor Vogels, we need to get back. Yes.
Sorry, Karen, or
Item 7, Councillors as committee reports, and 7.1 is the appointment of new committee members to the Cobden Aerodrome Community Asset Committee. Ms Love, please, can you introduce
Thank you,
this
Madam
item?
Mayor, and through you, councillors, this report is to seek endorsement of 2 new committee members to the Cobden Aerodrome Community Asset Committee. Following the AGM in October last year, there were 3 vacancies on the committee, including 2 community positions. Since that time, the committee have received 2 nominations from Mr David Roberts and Miss Sarah Roberts. The nominations were considered by the Community Asset Committee at its meeting in April, and the committee have recommended to council for their appointment, and the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Love. Councillors, recommendation. Someone like to move that, please? Councillor Beard, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Macon, thank you. Councillor Beard.
through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to move this recommendation. I will first and foremost identify we have got one of the fellow committee members here in the gallery with us tonight, Mr Les Mulholland, who I believe at that meeting was either the mover or the seconder of the motion to put up both Ms Sarah Roberts and Mr David Roberts, both brother and sister duo, to come onto our committee. We were fortunate enough back in February, if anyone can remember, I went on a bit of a campaign recruitment on social media to try and get a bit of interest for the Aerodrome Committee, and knowing that we had a handful of vacancies, and obviously we all know that we can't run our committees the way we want to unless we've got the numbers sitting around the table. It is a vital committee, being the only, it's actually our asset, the aerodrome, so we do hold it with the utmost importance. So it was great to be able to certainly get lots of shares and likes on Facebook, I think it was, but then Sarah out of the blue actually contacted me, and we got lucky here because she has got a wealth of experience. Her background, her and David, her brother, familiar faces around the aerodrome, and I think Mr Mulholland, you can remember them as smaller children when they would turn up there with their father. So they've got a caring nature and a love of the aerodrome, and want to see it prosper, and obviously assure its sustainability, just as council does as well. To be honest, both of them actually now have a professional background in aero engineering. Thank you, Mr Mulholland. Both of them have got a pretty outstanding resume actually, and to be honest, when we got their both of their well, not even an application because it wasn't a formal process as such, but for them to put their names forward, we were pretty impressed and actually feel like they're actually almost overqualified. But I think they're going to be a real asset to this committee, and I can't thank both of them enough for putting their names up to be part of that. And as I said, they've got full support of the committee. Come and introduce themselves, and so there's already that previous relationship being built over a couple of decades already existing. So happy to move that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Macon, do you mean to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have much to add, but I'm grateful that 2 people from the committee have put up their hand and are standing on this committee, because it is a very important committee, and as Mr Mulholland will testify, that if we didn't have this infrastructure in the Shire, then we'd be sorely missing some very important infrastructure within the Shire. The airstrip does provide a great benefit for lots of people in the community, not just recreational but farming as well. So I'm very happy to see both David and Sarah come on board and add their knowledge and expertise to this committee. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Macon. Councillors, anything further? All in favour?
Sorry, through you,
Oh,
Madam Mayor, if I
yes.
can, and sorry, it's going to be remiss of me if I can't take this opportunity being public. We still need an industry representative and another community representative. If anybody out there else is interested and have a love and a passion for the airstrip, anything to do with, you don't have to be an expert like these two obviously, but please, we'd love to see more people around the table. Thank you.
Also, Councillor Beard. Councillors, all in favour? It's carried. Moving to planning reports, and 8.1 is planning permit application PP 2022-090, 28 Lord Street, Port Campbell, the use and development of land associated with the extension to the existing motel, 16 additional accommodation units and function room. Mr Moyne, please.
Just,
Oh, sorry,
Councillor
Cole
will,
needs to leave. Mr Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I present Council with this report for planning permit application PP 2022-090. The application seeks planning approval for the development of land associated with the extension and additions to the existing motel, with 16 additional accommodation units, a function room, reduction in car parking and some removal of native vegetation. The application is associated with the existing Southern Ocean Motor Inn and seeks to expand the facilities on site, including those additional 16 accommodation units, the function room, provision of 21 car parking spaces, some deletion of ancillary reception and outbuildings, and the removal of native vegetation. The subject land is in a prominent location in Port Campbell, adjoining Lord Street and the Port Campbell Bay, and has extensive permit history, including the planning approval at the direction of VCAT in 2006 for the development of a 97-room motel and other facilities. There was a separate proposal before that was refused in 2003 by VCAT for a 102-unit development. Public notice of this application has been given and council has received 3 objections. I should correct that, actually 4 objections now, with a late objection this afternoon. Key issues raised in those objections relate to visual impact and view sharing, amenity impact on the adjoining residential properties, access and car parking, environmental risk and impact, geotechnical issues, and clarity of application information. A response to these issues raised in the objections and updated architectural drawings and photo montages were supplied by the applicant. All issues raised in the objections have been considered and addressed in the report itself. Planning assessment concludes that the proposal provides an acceptable response to the relevant provisions of the Corangamite planning scheme, including strategic and policy direction of the municipal planning strategy and planning policy framework, and the purpose and decision guidelines of both the commercial 1 zone and design and development overlay, Schedule 2. The proposal will provide additional tourism accommodation in Port Campbell, promoting increased visitor stays and other accommodation options for workers and professionals. The proposed built form provides an acceptable design and siting outcome which is respectful and appropriate, having regard to the coastal character of Port Campbell, whilst promoting a viable commercial outcome, managing residential amenity and providing for view sharing options. The recommendation is provided before you.
Thank you, Mr Moyne. Councillors, someone like to move this motion or an alternate motion?
Madam Mayor, could I move an alternate motion, more of an amended, so it'll be essentially the same as the officer's motion to approve the application with two changes. Needs to be amended plans would be in part 2. And it's number 3 would read, it would reduce the total building height of the rear building located along the southeastern boundary to have a total overall height not exceeding a reduced level of 21 metres. And the other change would now be in item 4, construction materials for the internal stairwell, which provides access to the rear buildings located across the southeastern boundary. And it must not be made of steel or metal finish.
Thank you.
So the rest of it would be the same conditions laid out in the officer's report.
I'll just get a seconder if we have one. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Macon. Councillor Vogels, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. And councillors, the changes would mean the height of the rear buildings is reduced by about 430 millimetres. This will require redesign of the buildings, but it doesn't. It does increase some potential view sharing based on the site conditions in the existing building. This is about the maximum feasible that we can ask for. The second condition is an additional requirement so that we know that the stairwell materials are made from what they're made from, and we want to be clear that they're not steel or metal, because and this will be to address potential noise concerns. And I appreciate the officers have done their job in assessing the application against the planning scheme, and they have taken into account the concerns of neighbours and the community. But there is still a need for more tourism accommodation in Port Campbell, and while this development will provide an increase, we need to listen to community where we can and make our best judgment, and reducing the height of the rear buildings, and whether that means changing or the shape or the roof line, roof type, scale and height of the rear buildings. Well, that's up to the applicant. So, you know, it's as good as I can come up with it. So hopefully we can work together and achieve something better out of this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bogles. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I'm very happy to second Councillor Bogles' motion with the 2 amended motions in there, so thank you for that. I think by reducing the height by 430 mil will help the issue of view sharing, the lack of view sharing. As stated previously through other other developments and applications that were put through and gone through VCAT, there is no legal right to a view, but it does acknowledge that the views do form part of the existing anonymity to the dwellings, and the availability of views must be considered what constitutes a reasonable sharing of views. And I think by reducing the height of the back ones, this helps with that. And also, I must make note that we were first presented with an application on this site back in 2006, so which is just under 20 years ago, which is a long time coming. But we started off with 97 room development, we're down to 16, and I think that is in line with what Port Campbell and what this site can handle. So I think the applicants and the planning team should be congratulated for what we've got to at this stage, because it's been a mammoth effort, but we've got here, and I think this is probably a best suit situation for this site as well. And also, one of the key issues in the assessment of the application focus on the design of proposed development in response to a coastal village character of Port Campbell. And I suppose, what is a coastal village feel of anywhere? You Google it and lots of styles come up, whether it's a curved roof or a flat roof or a gable roof. I think the developers just need to perhaps assess that a little bit more when they're looking at it, and think about that as well as they're going forward. But more than happy to support this recommendation, and well done on the planning department on coming to this. I think it's a great sort of compromise of what's been put in front of us. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Macon. It was actually 2002 was the first
sorry.
time. No, it was one of the very first planning decisions I made when I joined council, so it's very much still in my mind, and I have that very large folder still in my filing cabinet. No, not at all. It has certainly been quite a journey. Councillors, is there further comments on this? Councillor Canady and then Councillor Beard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I just want to make the point that this application is in the commercial zone in Port Campbell. Port Campbell is a tourist town, and its prosperity depends on tourism and visitation, and it needs new accommodation. We need to be able to attract visitors for overnight stays down in Port Campbell. That's been long recognised. So this is a good investment that is going to help keep the town vital, and I think we need to support this kind of development. We are very aware of neighbourhood amenity impacts and environment, and we've given a good deal of thought to that, and the alternate motion that's been put forward by Councillor Vogels shows that. But whilst there has been in the application there has been some design features that have supported view sharing. I agree with Councillor Vogels that more can be done, so I do support his alternate motion in that regard. We do want to be sure that the neighbours are looked after as much as possible, and I think that reduction in the roof line could be a good outcome for them. I think, though, that on balance, the application overall stands up, and I think it'll be a very beneficial addition to Port Campbell and the businesses of Port Campbell. So I'll state that I support the alternate motion that Councillor Vogels has put forward.
Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to my previous councillor who've spoken, and obviously to Councillor Vogels for putting in those additions to the recommendation. We've really pushed, we always seem to push our planning department, trying to look for the balance of addressing what the concerns are, particularly of the objectors, and then obviously what the application is in front of us. It's really hard to find enough holes in this to actually not vote for it. So I will be supporting Councillor Vogels' motion. However, I do want to say this site, as you alluded to, Mayor, that it's got a significant history. This site, I don't think there's ever, my time on council, and any time that site's been mentioned, it's never been smooth sailing. So I can appreciate, through you, Ms Manifold, too, that you've had a significant history with this site as well. And I just wanted to say thank you to you and her husband for accommodating us on the day that we came and actually had a look on site. The fact that we got to see the site as well as from your residents as well. So thank you for accommodating that, and obviously for the effort you've gone into providing as much information as you have to help us with our decision making. But thank you, as I said, to my fellow councillors. I will be supporting Councillor Vogel's motion as well.
Thank you. Councillors, there's nothing further? We've got nothing to wind up with Councillor Vogel's. Yep, I put it to a vote.
No, that'd be fine. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All in favour? Carried. And Councillor Vogels, you've got to step out for the next item, so if you can send Councillor Cole back in, please. He's gone that way.
He's gone that way. Yeah, he went up the opposite way. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Eve.
Yes.
So, councillors, item 8.2 is planning permit application PP 2022-149, use of land for materials recycling facility at Lilies Lane, Eklund. Thank you, Mr. Morning.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. I present Council with this report for planning permit application PP 2022-149. The application seeks planning approval to use the land for materials recycling. Specifically, the proposal seeks to establish a hard waste recycling facility to crush and blend hard waste such as concrete, bricks into other value-added products suitable for road construction and other civil works and projects. The proposed use will occur within the pit of an existing quarry which is nearing extraction completion and is progressively being rehabilitated. An area of the quarry floor will be established for the hard waste processing and recycling of approximately 1 hectare, incorporating a stockpiling area for raw materials, crushing and screening equipment, and space for vehicle loading and movements. There is no fixed infrastructure proposed to be provided on site. Proposed hours of operation are from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and access to the site will be provided via an existing crossover from Lilies Lane. Public notice of the application has been given and one objection has been received, with issues raised regarding amenity and health impact, particularly from noise and dust, application information and details, and planning policy response. Issues raised in the objections have again been addressed in the planning report. Planning assessment of the application concludes that the proposal will support a resource recovery outcome that warrants strategic and policy support where environmental and amenity impacts can be appropriately managed. The location and nature of the site and the proposed use will limit amenity impact on the surrounding dwellings, and there will be no impact on agricultural production. The proposal will enable the landowner and operator to diversify their business to process the hard waste materials, which can be reused, value-added and redirected into local projects, extending their useful life. The recommendation is provided before you.
Thank you, Mr Moyne. Councillors, Councillor Hickey, happy to move, and seconded by Councillor Canady. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. It's one of the more difficult decisions we make on council is the planning for all sorts of projects, and this is certainly one that was taking a lot of consideration as well. But however, I did consider most of the documents, or considered all the documents, and I feel confident that the 25 conditions, which include stormwater, runoff water, wastewater management, general amenity, hours of operation, noise suppression, dust suppression, access to the site, it's not going to be a public site, all give me somewhat reassurance that this will be a facility that will allow the recycled economy, or the recycled hard materials, to be reused back within our shire. The resource recovery is something that's very, very important to us as we move through making our roads stronger, our footpaths, and all the hard surfaces that we need. It's very important that we have somewhere where this can be recycled and developed. A 2 hectare site is not a huge site, yes, I certainly have considered the objections thoroughly. But I think this is probably the best outcome for this site, given that it's a disused quarry. It's probably an adequate site for the recovery of this hard material. So I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Canady.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I too support the recommendation before us. I think this is a really excellent repurpose of this facility. We have real need for this type of activity, they're making the most of our resources and materials through repurpose and reuse is the direction that we're going in terms of caring for our environment and so on. I really do appreciate the deputations that were made, and I appreciate too the concerns that were put before us, but I do think that this new activity is unlikely to introduce any significant variation to the quarrying activity that's been carried on there for some years up until now. Another quarry continues to operate nearby, which again indicates that we don't really have too much variation in the activity that's occurring. I think it's a really appropriate location for resource recovery, and it's like clever diversification of the site and aligns with our council MPS, and I do believe it has little potential for further adverse amenity in the area, so I do support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Councillors, is there anything further? Councillor Beard.
Oh yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'm always at ease when I know that nothing can actually happen until the responsible authority has given the approval for things to start. So I think the conditions that are put in place certainly allow for all that stringent oversight around everything that's been raised, and the issues that are of concern will certainly get considerably looked at before anything can even start. So that always does put me at ease when you see things like that in black and white. I'd like to think up until now I assume there's been a good neighbours approach, and I hope that continues between the two properties. Both resources that are really well needed in our communities and regionally, and both servicing obviously our ag sector particularly, and our local roads and tracks and stuff. So I think servicing of a gap is really important, and ways in which we can support that, but done in the right way, is really important. So, and I believe that the conditions are put in place will allow that oversight. So I thank you. I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillors, nothing further. I'll put to a vote. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Can we have Councillor Vogel's back, please? Thanks. Mr Moyne. Moving on to officers' reports, councillors, and 9.1, one of the most important items that we deal with every year is the draft budget for 2023-24. Mr Harrington, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. This report is to release the 2023-2024 draft budget, including the fees and charges schedule for public exhibition and feedback. The budget contains $54 million worth of commitments, which includes $17 million of projected capital works. The budget has been based on a 3.5% increase in rates and charges, which is in line with the state government's fair go rate system, the rate cap, but is well below the current CPI rates. The waste management charge is set to increase by 4.85% and includes the introduction of a new curbside glass collection service, whilst allowing for the impact of high inflation on the costs associated with the waste service. The budget allocates resources on an annual basis to support the council plan delivery, particularly the strategic initiatives and annual action plan. The budget aims to meet these objectives in the most financially sustainable manner possible, whilst continuing to provide quality services to all sections of the community. Overall, this is a responsible budget given the external factors, particularly around the current high inflation, and aims to keep council in a financially sustainable position into the future. Initial public consultation was conducted over December and January, with 13 responses received from the community, and covered such items as roads, open space, climate action, and libraries. These submissions were considered by councillors and officers and helped to inform the draft budget, which is presented tonight. The report is recommending that the draft budget proceed to public exhibition and invite public submissions. Public submissions will close on the 7th of June, and anyone that requests to speak to councillors about their submissions will have the opportunity on the 20th of June. Mayor, there is a recommendation before you.
Thank you, Mr Harrington. Councillors, someone prepared to move the draft budget? Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillors, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Beard. Mr Harrington nearly had a heart attack there. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think one of the things we talk about most at Corangamite is working hard to maintain a strong financial position, and I think that we've still managed to do that with this draft budget. We are mindful of operating within our means, and we are mindful of maintaining our services to our community. That's a priority, and it's a responsibility that we take very seriously. And like a lot of us at the moment, council is also subject to the pressures of rising costs and diminishing grants. But I'm pleased to say that of the 54 million budget we have, we've factored in almost 17 million, just short of that, of capital works for renewal and development. And these renewal and development is just so important for growth, and we just keep having to chip away at that. It's an important thing to do. But more than half of that 17 million capital works planned is allocated to our road network. So that's 9.4 million thereabouts is allocated for fixing our roads, and we all hear every day how important it is to keep on top of that as much as possible. At the same time, we're keeping an eye on our 10-year plan and the trending of state and federal grants, and I haven't looked at the graph, but I'm pretty sure, Mr Harrington, that it's trending downwards, isn't it? Yes. And we have made allowance in our 4-year budget also for something that could be quite exciting for us, and that's a proposed investment to produce commercial grade compost at the landfill. So this is just a thought at the moment. It's something that we think is a potential for us to produce an income stream, and also to reduce material that's going into the landfill. So even though there is a lot of work to be done yet around a feasibility study and a business case, we have factored in some loan funds to account for that should we ever proceed with it. There's also been some good planning towards reserve transfers to manage landfill restoration and future large-scale projects. We still are hoping to get some further funding to finish the 12 Apostles Trail, and also the Port Campbell town redevelopment. So we still have a little way to go to get that completed. As far as rates are concerned, yes, people worry about their rates a lot, and we understand that it is a concern for them. As Mr Harrington said, there is an opportunity for anyone that has a challenge in meeting this expense to come into council and talk to us about a payment program. If you need to manage your rates payments in that way, we're happy to help you. As a regional council, we do have few options for revenue. Our rates make up 47% of our total revenue, but we have continued to maintain our rates within the rate cap. But I must say too that making it 47% of our total revenue, a lot of that money does go back to the community with the delivery of services and the delivery of capital projects and various styles of support to the community. So your rates aren't all for nothing. We do try to make them get as much value out of them as possible and for your benefit. Having said that too, we've factored in, talking about costs, factored in 1.3% increase in the cost of delivering services and administration in council. So, that's a decent enough increase. But anyway, I'm pleased to say that that's been taken account of in our budget planning. We're still able to arrive at a surplus of 3.79 million for the 23-24 budget, and we've built in buffers to meet obligations obligations that are unexpected should they arise, and they do arise. But I would encourage the community to make input into this draft budget. We're always anxious to, or not anxious, but we would like to hear your submissions. We're very interested to have any input from the community in the development of this budget, because it is of the draft budget, because it is for you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Well, I don't know what we're all worried about, because you literally just ticked off everything then. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy.
Lots of notes.
I don't know why we're all sitting, now you know why we're all sitting back waiting. And I'm going to try and work through my messy notes that I've got here. But thank you first and foremost to the staff. And I often say the finance team, but when I think about it, the budget just doesn't come out of thin air in a matter of weeks or a month, or even there's a strategic link to so many council documents that help form the budget over many, many months, and it literally is worked from bottom up in terms of where it starts to then when it finally gets to the council table. So I just want to do a shout out to all the staff that, because not everyone gets their own way when projects get put up and then they make their way to the council table, including us. So first and foremost, just wanted to say a shout out there. I'll try and pick up on a couple of things that Councillor Kennedy hasn't already spoke to. A really important project, and it's pleased to see the inclusion of upgrades to 2 waterway crossings, so 2 bridges, Smythe Street Bridge in Skipton and Maddens Bridge Road floodway, which is very well known throughout the region, which were both being impacted or inundated typically during any large flood events. We obviously had the tragic incident at Maddens Bridge Road 2 years ago, which the coroner recommended we consider the feasibility and safety of other construction options at the site in light of the traffic use and frequency of flooding. In the floods last year, as well as in previous years, the Smythe Street Bridge always takes a hit, as the locals know. This work will help future-proof the secondary access between the east and west of the Skipton Township, which is vitally important. We will look at the grant funding to complement council's dollars to fund these design and construction projects as we move along. I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that Council supported, well, thus far, in the implementation of Stage 1 at Tandralt Park in Cobden. Last year, remember, we did the master plan, and now we can actually see some of those projects come to light. So thank you, councillors, for helping get that through. Further investments in small town improvements, where we really show that we back out our assets as a council, and that we take pride in our asset management, is also the Timboon and Camperdown stadiums, as well as being landlord. We want to see that these are fit for purpose, just like the Camperdown Golf Club and the Maternal Child and Health Building in Terang, all of which are our responsibility. But again, once again, we're showing that we listen to our community and make sure we attend to their needs. A pretty exciting project out at Cobden, I'll just say, is the irrigation project for the ground, where council supported that thus far, which will be a huge benefit to all users of that recreation reserve, and will help with not only the volunteer hours that are put in there, but obviously make pretty significant cost savings. And this is where we like to do things in our own organisation, is around where we can make savings, and we obviously like to support our community groups in doing the same thing, so that'll be great to support. In terms of the transfers, the reserve transfers that Councillor Canady spoke to, I think one of the big ones that we did quite a few years back was around the future large-scale projects, where we identified projects that might need extra money. We didn't just make up projects or put money in a holding account thinking, oh, just for that rainy day. We actually have got allocations there, but we have specifically stated what they're for, not jeopardising our grant funding opportunities through state and federal government. So I think it's really important that we don't come across that we've got all this money when actually we don't. It's just that it's earmarked for projects that we need to leverage off. So I just want to make sure that people understand that we're not just sitting on a heap of money, we actually have it there for a reason. Interesting enough, everyone would have seen the headlines today in the Warrnambool Standard that farmers, I think the Warrnambool Standard are here with us tonight, that farmers are to pay the bulk of our revenue. We have to remember that farm prices, rural properties, I'm sure that my fellow councillors who are farmers sitting next to me and around the table will jump in and say something, no doubt too, but markets driven the values basically in residential, in communities, but also out on our rural properties. So even though the headline says that farmers to pay the majority, it's not something that we've forced on, it's actually driven by the valuers. So I just wanted to reiterate that that's, I guess, the basis behind that sentiment. But again, thank you for the process, Council. I think we're getting really good at it. It is a tighter budget, I think, than what we've ever worked in terms of the amount of projects we're seeing and we're able to do. But it's also a reflection on the capabilities of what we're putting our organisation under as well, and knowing that we want our staff to be able to do their best they can with what they've got, but not overdo it as well. So I think that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillors, Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I think most areas have been covered, but look, very exciting to be able to spend $54 million initially when the budget came out, but my goodness, how quickly it disappears. I think what we have got in this draft budget is a very fair outcome for everybody, whilst delivering and upholding our services. There's certainly the great help that we've been given by David Harrington and by Simon Vickery, and the trouble they went through to actually explain every spend that was going through the budget was very welcomed by myself, and I would imagine everybody. It's a document that has taken a lot of time. I, for one, am very proud of what's come out the other end of it, but it keeps in the back of my mind a little hammer coming away and saying what my grandmother used to say to me all the time, is that it's important to be living within your means. And I think that's exactly what this budget has done. We're living within our means, yes, I think this is a very, very good document.
Thanks, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, is there anything further? Councillor Macon, then Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I was having a competition with Councillor Vogels, who would be last. Yeah, I think this is a great budget. I'm very excited that a few things have got in there for Timboon and Scotts Creek, mainly the Scotts Creek Recreation Reserve, so the Corangamite Lions, and having some lighting and drainage done on their oval, which is really great. They've got a great little club out there. It's just thriving at the moment. So I'm happy to see that they can hopefully play their games out there without getting too muddy and wet in the future years to come. But also, I just want to make note that we are living within our means, but our means of getting money is getting harder and harder. The state government and the federal government are really tightening up as to how much money we can get in grant funding, and the state government hasn't been this broke since Joan Kerner was in government some 30 years ago, and I'm sure most of us around this room can remember when that was the time and how hard those times were. So we are very fortunate at this stage that we can do these projects, but in futures to come, this may not be as easy as it is today. So I just like to flag that the state government are pushing more and more things onto us to maintain, to upkeep and everything else, but yet we're getting no more funding from the state government. And I find that's really frustrating. And I know they're in lots of debt and everything else, and I'm grateful for the funds and the grants that we do get. But there is a time and a place when they need to step up and they need to take responsibility for their assets as well. So I just want to flag that as well. But there is some other great things in the budget. The Timberton Transfer Station's getting the redesign implementation, so that's great. There's the playground renewal, and as Joe said before, the Maddens Bridge culvert upgrade, which is really needed for that part of the world. So thank you. That is my little rant, as one would say, for the night. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Meek and Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd also like to acknowledge the effort of all the staff and from managing directors and the finance team and the effort they put in, the nimble changes they can make when we make a different decision to make it still balanced, still come in within budget. See some eyebrows raised when some things come up, but they seem to be able to make it work. So there's many great projects that made the cut, but there's also many great projects that didn't make the cut, and I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their efforts achieving a spread of projects across our Shire wards with the limited funds we have to work with. The rate cap rise of 3.5% is supported by council, and with my council hat on, this is not enough to deliver on their community expectations. But with my ratepayer hat on, it's far too much. So I think that might have the balance right, because it just makes everybody unhappy evenly. And council is in a good position for debt, and in the coming years we may take on debts, but this will be smart debt with a big capital investment that has a payback, and this investment will eventually generate income. So it ticks all the sustainability boxes and then some. I think if you're going into debt, it has to be smart debt, and any debt we take on will have to pass this same test, I think. And we as a council are not about cost shifting to future generations, but setting them up to grow and prosper. Disappointingly, even with our planned variation of another drop of 0.5% agricultural differential, average farm rates across the Shire are looking at a 9.5% increase. So I will call on farmers to make submissions to council on this draft budget, and maybe asking for a more dynamic rating system or dynamic rating strategy, and a more effective use of differential rating powers to achieve a more equitable outcome to the rate burden carried by the farming community. And even better, I think, would be if the VFF and other farming advocacy groups, I lost my notes here, sorry, Madam Mayor, and I'm sure that the regional and rural councils should join in, that the current rating system, where, for example, someone in Timboon pays 100% more rates in the dollar as someone who lives in Toorak, and this is not remotely justifiable as equality. And what other tax discriminates based on where you live by paying 100% more than our city cousins' rate in the dollar? What I would ask of the state government is if they really are interested in equality, or are they some people more equal than others? And Madam Mayor and fellow councillors, that's my rant.
Thank you. I might have to start introducing the time limit, I think, on the rants. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Cole.
I'll have a go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I haven't, I'm the last of the line, I haven't got a lot left to say, but I will congratulate, as everyone else has, the officers and the staff that have put together the budget. It's not an easy document to put together. There's a lot of work getting the figures organised and putting them in and just bringing it to council so that we can sit there and fiddle with it and make it harder for them. But it's spread across the Shire. There's works going on everywhere across the Shire, so everyone's getting a bit of a go in the budgets, which is good to see. No one's being left out, and no one's being. There will be some that say that they're getting better more than others, but anyway, that's always the way. As Councillor Vogel said, though, the farmers seem to be picking up a huge proportion of the rate. The bills have gone up astronomically, which is making it fairly hard for some of the farmers. It comes off their bottom line. It's an expense that they have to pay every year, and we have to find it, and it makes them less able to do a lot of works to keep efficiency going and be lost my train of thought, but it makes it harder to keep modernising equipment and things, and makes it get a bit behind and efficient in their income. So if they want farmers to be efficient and produce produce as cheaply as possible, cost burden is being shifted onto them, making it other way. So it's the first expense we have to pay, that and insurance, and it's getting very, very hard, that amount of money to find every year. So something else has to give, and that means we're cutting back somewhere else and things, and being inefficient in that regard. So thank you. That's my little rant.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I will say, and just to clarify, that Council has, we are within the rate cap at 3.5%, and a lot of people say my rates have gone up substantially more than that, and obviously in the farming sector it has, and it all comes down to valuation. So the 3.5% is actually the total amount of money in rates that we can collect. So we add on the 3.5%, and then the valuations are done, and then the different rates are apportioned to various households. And I think Councillor Vogels, you mentioned that that Council does have a differential rate in place for farming properties, which drops another 0.5% this year to 87.5% of the general rate. So I know it becomes very confusing that every year you think your rate's going to go up 3.5% and they come in at 9%, or they've dropped, and you don't really understand it. Councillor Kennedy mentioned about hardship, and we do want, if anybody is struggling with rates, we really want to have a conversation with them. We don't want to put anyone under due financial pressure. But also, if you get your rate notice and you think that your CIV, capital improved value, is higher than what you would expect to get for your property, then by all means lodge a rate objection and come in and have a talk with our valuers. I can't guarantee that you'll get your valuation dropped down, but at least you can have a frank and open discussion with them. Councillors, we have thanked the finance team and in fact the whole staff for putting the budget together, but I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for the way that this council have dealt with the budget. It's certainly done in a most respectful way, and I think that's really important here at Corangamite. Well, it's actually important everywhere that you can have a frank and open discussion amongst ourselves, and we think we've come up with the right mix in providing funding to over 80 services and ageing infrastructure demands, the issues around resources and inflation. There's a lot on the plate, and as well as the Councillor Macon, you mentioned about the potential drop in external funding from state and federal. So please, if you would like to have a look at the budget and would like to make a comment, we'd love to have your feedback by the 7th of June. So councillors, on that note, I will put to vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.2 is the finance report for March 2023. Mr Harrington, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. This report presents Council's financial position at the end of March 2023. and seeks approval for budget variations during the quarter. Council's financial performance for 2022-2023 remains on target. The year-to-date cash variance is just over $6 million favourable to budget and is mainly due to additional income through the Grants Commission and landfill operations, savings through vacant positions, along with timing variances on projects. It is expected that there will be significant carry forward of projects into the 2023-2024 financial year, which is a result of multi-year projects, contractor availability and internal resourcing. There is one budget variation for the quarter which relates to the successful grant funding of a maternal child and health workforce support grant. As this is a grant, there is nil impact to the cash position of council. Mayor, there is a recommendation before you.
Thank you, Mr Harrington. Councillors, someone prepared to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Canady. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Mayor. It's great to see that we're on target with the budget. Of course, there's always going to be with any budget a variation in the numbers. So it's great that we were able to massage it back into the projects again. Expected carry forward. Well, that sort of relates a lot to getting people on the ground and having the facilities to be, or having the manpower to be able to complete a lot of our projects. So that is to be expected as well. So I'm very happy to receive this report.
Thank you. Councillor Canady.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I don't really have too much to say about this. I mean, it is what it is, and Mr Harrington explained the reasons why we have the variation, and as Councillor Hickey said, well, there are variations to any budget, and the main aim, of course, is to stay on track, and we are still on track for our cash position of $5 million. That's what we aim for every time. So that's what it looks like, and I support or happy to receive the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Canady. Councillors, anything further? All in favour? Carried. Item 9.3 is the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. Mr CEO.
Thanks, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a revised policy for a Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration. This has come about due to our normal review process, but also, as you're aware, Council has recruited and appointed a new Chief Executive. There has been some change in both legislation and also the Independent Review Tribunal do hand down decisions from time to time from the state, and professional advice was provided from Maddix to update this policy. The main changes within the document are providing for professional support to the councillors in reviewing the CEO appointment and remuneration, which is required under the legislation. It also includes a requirement of a statement of policy that the VIRT, Victorian Independent Remuneration Tribunal determinations are considered when you're doing the review. It removes some unnecessary points that were in there before, and a new clause of 7.8 was inserted about the reappointment of the CEO, which outlines the process. Corangamite's been very fortunate that there have been relatively straightforward appointments in the last many years, so this has just brought it up to current day practice and policy and legislation, and the policy and the recommendation are before you.
Thank you, Mr Tubble. Councillors, someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Beard. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Macon. Thank you. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I think Mr Tubble's certainly gone into enough detail. I won't repeat any of it. Certainly, just a reminder that I guess when we had the changes to the Local Government Act, it feels like the gift that keeps on giving, where we have to keep adding changes to all our policies that keep referring back to the changes of the Local Government Act update. So I see this as purely administrative and something that we just have to do. And yeah, it's coming closer where we have our new CEO beginning.
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, if there's nothing further, all in favour? Carried. Item 9.4 is the Fair Access Policy. Ms Love, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, councillors. This report recommends Council adopt a new policy, being the Fair Access Policy, which seeks to address known barriers experienced by women and girls in accessing community sports infrastructure. Just for a bit of context, in December 2015, the Victorian Government released a report from an independent inquiry into women and girls in sport and active recreation. And the report actually shed light on gender inequality within the Victorian sporting sector. As a result, 9 recommendations were put forward to increase leadership and participation by women and girls in sport. And those recommendations included driving a commitment through an Ambassadors of Change program, engaging and empowering by connecting ambassadors to women and girls, mandating gender balance and good governance principles, reform recruitment practices and processes for leadership positions, enhancing participation, choice and improving how opportunities are marketed, delivering female-friendly built environments and equitable facility usage policies, building an enabling environment through education and training, showcasing pathways and opportunities using role models, and increasing the profile of women in sports media. So the Fair Access Policy Roadmap developed by the state government is designed to provide a foundation for a statewide approach to improving access to and use of community sports infrastructure. And from July 2024, all councils will need to ensure there is fair access to sporting facilities for people of all genders, and that will be a requirement for eligibility to receive infrastructure grants. So the roadmap, this new policy, pending council's adoption, and an action plan is underpinned by 6 principles that have been developed by the Office for Women in Sport and Recreation and in Vic Health in consultation with local government and state sporting sector. And those 6 principles are inclusivity, full participation, equal representation, encouraging and supporting user groups, and prioritising user groups' commitment to equality. So this policy, councillors, is to support the organisation and council to take a positive action towards achieving gender equality or equity in the access and usage of our community sports infrastructure. So we're looking to build capacity and capabilities to identify and eliminate causes of gender inequality in policy, programming, communications and availability of facilities, to ensure place-based response to the gender equitable use and access, and promote gender equality in policies and programs and communications. Councillors, there's some work to do around education and awareness moving forward, but this is the first start and the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Love. Councillors, recommendation to adopt the Fair Access Policy. Would someone like to move that, please? Councillors, thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Hickey. Councillor Beard, Ms Love gave a very good rundown.
I know,
there.
I feel like there's not much left to say. And to be honest, we've had a briefing on this and with Jane Hines, one of our officers, and it's very evident in the direction of obviously the state's direction, but also how communities are transitioning, I think, into the space where we just have to be more mindful and considerate of everybody. And you know, now that there's actually plans around, you know, it's not only local government, it's committees of management, it's land managers, it's not just for, it's on everybody really that this is just going to be a way forward. I like that there's not an expectation that we have to do everything straight away, because I think we have to make sure it's achievable. But to have an overriding document now that states our policy around such a thing is really critical, and it also sends that message out to our community members that we are committed to that. I did have a question for Ms Love though, if that's okay. And sorry, it's without notice, Mrs Love, but in relation to other facilities, so I think of other community groups that aren't necessarily our facilities, but they're more on DECA land, so state government land. Will they too have, because we said before how funding is drying up, so when we want to see improvements to infrastructure builds, particularly where we're looking at female participation and that side of equity, is there going to be a bit more impetus on how they can fund those opportunities for the communities, or is there going to be more streamlining of that? I just feel like we're not going to get told we have to do this, but then they're not going to do it as well. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bid, so typically the funding for the recreation facilities is council applies for, so the policy that we have in place now will be sufficient enough to
back our application.
to meet our obligations. That being said, we still want to make sure that on the ground and implementation of the policy is widespread, not just from council's own facilities. So the Office of Women for Women in Sport have been liaising with DECA, who's the overarching authority for all of our recreation reserves, for example, and certainly with DECA and Southwest Sports Assembly and supported by Council, we'll be looking to ensure that there's an education and awareness at both the club level and the facility management level across the Shire.
Supported by the government.
Should be driven by government.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Hickey.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to support the fair access policy. Gender equality in sport participation is very important. Having watched our daughters grow up playing netball right across the whole southwest of Victoria and probably western Victoria now, some of the opportunities they had to participate weren't always comfortable. So it's great to see that we as a community are moving forward this. I'd have to say there's a lot more facilities that are very much up to standard to accommodate fair access and gender equity within sport. So yes, happy to support this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillors, nothing further. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.5, the Delegated Committee of Management for the Terang Senior Citizens Building. Ms Love.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, councillors, this report is to consider council assuming the position of Committee of Management of the Terang Senior Citizens Building and Land at 12 the Promenade in Terang. So council leased that Crown land from DECA, and council own the building that's situated on that land. And the lease agreement is set to expire on the 30th of June this year, to which DECA have advised us that peppercorn rental will no longer be applicable, and a market rental and associated lease preparation costs will be required should council wish to renew its lease. So estimated costs are in the vicinity of about $20,000 in the first year, and then approximately $17,000 thereafter, plus also property holding costs as well would be applicable. Council officers have considered options, and one other option is that, or DECA have provided an option that we might wish to become the Committee of Management of that site, and should council become Committee of Management, there would be no work, no fees, no rental payable, and still the property holding costs that we pay now. So the recommendation before you is to look at an option for council to become the Committee of Management. This is quite similar to the process we went through for the former Terang Maternal Child Health Building as well. And so it's not a new precedent, but it will alleviate ongoing financial burden to council while still providing for our current users. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Love. Councillors, somebody would like to move that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Canady. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think it's pretty obvious what the best option in this situation is, and that's to form for us to form a Committee of Management, because we certainly don't want to be finding ourselves with a whole raft of new expenses when it's absolutely not necessary, when we can form a Committee of Management and have almost no change, and still the ability for all those user groups in that building to enjoy the benefit of that. So I certainly do support this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Canady. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Mayor. I think this is an easy one. The Committee of Management is going to provide us with good support for the council and provide good support for those people of Terang who use this facility. So happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillors, Put to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.6 is the Grow and Prosper Corangamite Framework. Mrs Lindley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is the next stage of the development of Grow and Prosper Corangamite, which is the 10-year Growth and Prosperity Framework 2023 to 2033. The framework provides council and community with a mechanism to take the prosperity theme that's contained in the Corangamite Community Vision 2040 and convert it into tangible actions and some measurable outcomes. The framework brings together the ideas and concepts explored in the Grow and Prosper discussion paper of May this year and generated through research, community and business engagement and co-design workshops that were held last year. In conjunction with the discussion paper, it consolidates Council's approach to economic and community development, inclusive of the arts, culture, tourism and the circular economy. The framework exists as part of an integrated approach to strategic planning and is an action identified in the Council Plan 2021 to 25. It's designed to give effect to the themes contained in the Corangamite Community Vision, and it draws from and is intended to inform government and industry plans and of course the Council Plan. The 6 action plans, while directly aligned as part of the framework, also have a strong relationship with our new environment and sustainability strategy, which we're currently developing. The methodologies that we've used to construct the framework focus on the wellbeing of people, communities and the environment, not only on economic profit. The framework provides for levers or interventions that Council may wish to undertake to implement the action plans, and these include business support and facilitation programs, business assistance schemes, grant programs and investment facilitation services. Several levers are already in place and have been for some time, for example our business facade grants program, events and festivals funding. Others are proposed or are formalising or enhancing existing practices, for example our economic partnership program, or introducing new programs to meet the needs of community as they arise. In undertaking the co-design and engagement components with community and businesses, it became apparent that while these outcomes remain important, they cannot be achieved by Council alone, and the community has expressed an appetite for collaboration, connectivity and respectful partnerships, for thinking differently and being proactive and positive about our future. And on this basis, the development of the 6 action plans will continue to involve direct community and business input with both participatory and collaborative engagement, and each year a Grow and Prosper report card will be prepared to chart progress and outline adjustments or alterations to the framework so that we can make sure that it remains current and relevant. The implementation of the action plans and programs are of course subject to council budget, resourcing and other policy considerations. The recommendation before you is to endorse the framework and proceed with the development of the 6 action plans. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs Lindley. Councillors, someone like to move that recommendation? Well, thank you, Councillor Canady. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cole. Thank you. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mrs Lindley did give us a great description of the project, and we've talked about it a lot in Council, and I think we're all pretty excited about this one. I think it's just been it's a really great idea to have brought together 3 separate strategies into a single framework, and it's even better that it's tailored to the Corangamite Shire, so that we're looking for great ideas from our community. We're looking for the things that are going to keep Corangamite prosperous, to assist development, business growth. This is what this framework is aimed at, and it's just been really wonderful to have worked through it with the co-design principles, because we've had such terrific input from our community, from business holders, various other stakeholders, and I've been to a few of the workshops and they've just been really vigorous. Everyone's almost been somewhat excited when they've gotten around the table and started to get their ideas out on paper, and all of that work and energy and all those ideas have been brought together to create the framework that we have, and I think we've got a lot to go forward with because we are wanting to transform the community vision and the vision that we've created in our council plan into tangible outcomes. So I think we've done a lot of work. There's been a lot of effort from the community and other stakeholders as well, and I think we're certainly ready to progress to the next stage. So I certainly support this recommendation.
Thanks.
I think it's going to be exciting.
It certainly will be. Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is interesting thing that's coming forward. There's a list of tourism and events and things that we can offer, and nothing is really too weird or strange, and people are looking for all these sorts of things now. I remember we've discussed one, which is perhaps having an aquarium at Port Campbell that you can walk through or into and down under the in and look at things. They're doing it in Melbourne and Sydney and places like that. We could offer an actual live one in the sea, something completely different. We already have medieval fighting in the Stony Rises. People are looking for these strange sorts of different outcomes for entertainment, and we've got a fabulous place to offer it. We're close to Melbourne and Geelong and big cities and airports, but far enough away to be out of sight and out of mind in a few ways, and be able to do these sorts of things. Music festivals are coming back in again, so there's the standard ones, but there's also room for other off-the-track sort of events and things, and it all helps the Shire and the area grow and prosper because it creates employment and gives people entertainment as well. So I'm very happy to move all this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cole. Councillors, anything else? Councillor Hickey.
If I may, Mayor, this is a great discussion paper with Grow and Prosper because it allows the community not just to sit back and let something happen. It actually gives us opportunity to be immersed in the actual fabric of the future and to create some of the solutions to the problems that are going to arise. So, as has been said previously, it's a great paper, and I'm very, very happy to be part of it and to support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the name Grow and Prosper says it all. To grow and prosper, just growth without prosperity is disastrous, and prosperity is not just about financial gain. It's about so much other stuff in community well-being, health, and it's good to involve the community as we move forward in this on what they're looking for, what their ambitions are into the future for the Corangamite Shire, and I think this is above and beyond in what we're doing here from just normal council strategy, and I think it'll be something that'll be picked up across the whole sector eventually, and it ticks a lot of boxes in where we should be going. Circular economy especially, and so much other things anyway. It's too much to mention, I'd say.
It's certainly
not really.
It's certainly innovative, and I commend Mrs. Lindley and her team for all the work that they've done in putting this together, and also like to thank everyone who's participated in this, whether it's been surveys, the co-design workshops, provided feedback, and reading through some of the comments and the ideas that are in the document. There's amazing ideas, and certainly, I really do think it's a terrific document that's going to serve Corangamite well for the next 10 years. So thank you, Mrs. Lindley. Councillors, if there's nothing further, can I put that to a vote, please? All in favour? Carried. Item 9.7 is the Quick Response Grant allocation for May. Mrs. Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Quick Response Grants program has a fixed budget that Council provides annually for distribution of funds to Shire community groups. And the program has a rolling intake, which is a very flexible approach that allows council to allocate small amounts of money to different groups, resulting in positive outcomes for the community. For the month of May, 8 applications were received. The application from the Camperdown Uniting Church has been withdrawn. There are therefore 7 remaining applications, and officers are recommending that council fund 3 of the applications, namely the Camperdown Unit State Emergency Service towards the purchase of a barbecue, the Camperdown Progress Club towards the purchase of a portable PA system, and the Purvis Eureka Car Club of Australia towards the running costs of an event to be hosted within the Corangamite Shire. Given that the allocations for all wards are at or nearing their limit, officers further recommend that council holds over to the June meeting consideration of the applications from the Carpentine Public Hall and Recreation Committee, the Terang Golf Club, the Rotary Club of Cobden, and the Cobden Information Centre project for the installation of a permanent sign at the Cobden Information Centre. All applicants who may be eligible for community facilities and enabling grants have been and will continue to be encouraged to look to make applications for those annual programs, but noting that they are closing very soon, in fact coming up on the 28th of May. So we do have that split recommendation, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Lindley. So, councillors, what we're voting on, asking to be moved, is that from the applications B, C out of section 1 and 2B, and the rest are held over, with the exception of Camperdown Uniting Church, which has been withdrawn. The rest are held over until the June meeting. So would someone like to move that motion, please? Councillor Cole, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey, thank you. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do note that the North still has a chunk of money left to spend, so we're a bit slack up there getting our things in. I can't see that we're fully equipped and everything, so something must be needed up north. But it helps a lot, as I've said before, it helps a lot of organisations with quick money, quick grant, but it is not retrospective, so you've got to apply for it and then hope to get it and then spend the money afterwards. You can't go and buy the product or whatever and then hope to be reimbursed. You've got to do it before. One of the ones this year, this time around, I noticed there's a Purvis Eureka Car Club meeting at Corangamite. In my youth, before grey hair, I was a bit keen on the Purvis Eurekas. Then I switched to MG, so I'm stuck that way. But I was, as I said, nearly bought one once, so I'll be quite keen to go and have a look at that and see them. They're an Australian-made car for someone who doesn't know anything about them. They were made back in the 70s and 60s. And Eureka was the top of the line sports car. They're a fiberglass machine and pretty handy looking machinery. So yeah, so I'm more than happy to move this.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Hickey.
Nothing more to add, Mayor.
You're not going to talk about your vintage cars, no?
I like the Purvis Eureka too.
And as just to restate what Mrs Lindley said, is that the quick response grants are for things that come out of the blue that you're not expecting. So please, you only have a few more days to go to get your applications in for council's grant programs right across the board. So community facilities grants, small equipment, recreation reserves, there's a number of grants. So look on council's webpage and please talk to our staff if you need some help in getting applications in, because there's nothing worse than getting an incomplete application and then you miss out on funds. So keep the quick response grants for those unexpected things that you need to replace. Councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 10, other business. Do we have any other business, councillors? Councillor Hickey.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to give notice of motion notice of motion for me.
Is this the Swanson's Lane?
So this is on Swanson's Lane, yes,
Okay.
and the motion, shall I read that?
Well, first of all, we've got conflict of interest. So Councillor Kennedy and Mrs Lindley, if I can ask you to leave the chamber, please. Well, they're going outside, so we better not be too
Better not
long.
be too long.
Better go there.
Councillor Hickey, would you like to read your motion, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it brief, otherwise I'll catch the hypothermia out there. Until you've noticed the motion, this council expresses disappointment in relation to the lack of communication and engagement of ratepayers, community and the Corangamite Shire by the wind farm proponent RE Futures for the Garvock Wind Farm for the planning application recently lodged with the Department of Transport and Planning, and that the Mayor expressed disappointment in writing to Ministers D'Ambrosio and Kilkenny and RE Futures on behalf of the Corangamite Shire and its ratepayers and all its communities.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hickey. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Thank you, Councillor Beard. Do you want to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Yes, thank you. It just seems to be that there is a complete lack of respect for local government that's coming from developers and from the state government.
Actually get some sense out of their people that they've got to exist with. And it's not always the anti-people that are doing this. It's actually the people that have to live and work around these projects. So that's my rant. I don't think I've had a rant tonight. There's my rant.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that this isn't about the wind farm application. This is about the lack of respect to the community around Garvock, lack of respect to Corangamite Shire and the Moyne Shire. Councillors, are there any other comments want to be made on this? Yes, Councillor Macon.
Can I just add that this is not the first time that RE Future have put an application in within Corangamite Shire, and I figured that they would have learnt from the first time when they put an application in that community consultation is quite high on our priority list and it needs to be done well, and they're not learning and not hearing us loud and clear that this needs to be done. So I just feel that we know our communities, listen to what we're saying and come along and inform us, and you might be surprised as the outcome you might get. But listen to us. We know our communities. Thank you.
I think without a doubt, and it's whenever we're talking with developers in any field, we always say about going and talking to the neighbours and speaking to them, and it makes it an easier process more often than not. So this just leads to, I guess, a lot of mistrust, particularly from the community. Councillors, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Can somebody rescue Councillor Kennedy and Mrs Linley, please? We're up to item 11, which is open forum. Anyone like to have any comment? Thank you, Mr Mulholland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and I thank you very much for carrying on the forum, and I hope it always carries on, because it is a vital part for the community to have their say, and I do appreciate it. And tonight I'd like to speak on behalf of all the constituents and ratepayers that aren't in the seats here tonight, and I would like to see more of them in attendance, and I feel that perhaps they would be in attendance if, and I apologise for, because I know other people have brought this up beforehand, that if it can be made so as the audience can hear. I know it's not easy, but we live in a very amazing world that if you can imagine it, someone's doing it, and I'm sure with a little bit of research it is possible, because I think a lot of constituents are staying away because the ability to hear everything isn't all that good, and I think that with a little bit of effort it could be made a lot better, and I would appreciate a little bit of thought to go into it. Thank you very much once again for the opportunity to speak to you, and I do hope that this opportunity always remains for all constituents. It is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mulholland. Nobody else we have in the the gallery. Are there any questions online, Mr. CEO?
I know, but the 4 people there, Gary, Russell, Jacob and Rifat, have sat through the whole meeting, so good on them, and they're very social, talking to each other.
That's wonderful. Excellent, thank you. And I'm very disappointed that Trevor's not.
No, he is
amongst them.
now.
Right.
Trevor joined late.
Okay. Oh dear.
Oh, he doesn't get acknowledged if he joined.
No.
He had a bowls meeting.
We don't have any confidential items, but before I do close the meeting, I do want to acknowledge the contribution that you have made in your acting role. Michael, you've been absolutely fantastic to have steering us through the budget process, the CEO recruitment process. You've enabled our senior officers group to get on doing what they do absolutely best without having to keep jumping in and out of the CEO's seat. So we certainly thank you for the last 4 months. Thank your family for letting you come and hang out with us for the last 4 months. And we certainly wish you all the very best. And we know that you're heading off to do an acting role in another municipality in a couple of weeks. So they're very lucky to have you. But in saying that, we'll certainly looking forward to the commencement of our new CEO, David Ray, begins with us on Monday. So a new chapter in Corangamite's history. But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed. Councillors, if there's nothing further, I'll close the meeting. And for those people who have stuck with us all the way through, thank you very much indeed. And we look forward to our June council meeting. Thanks very much.